We've talked about dreams under management, goals under management, and now it's time for humans under management. More specifically, the virtual Humans Under Management Conference happening on the 8th of September with incredible speakers from around the world. I'm thrilled to be part of this event for those seeking better client outcomes, which, as a listener of the Innovating Advice Show, I know includes you, and am impressed by how affordable this event is for advisors and planners everywhere. We're talking about the cost of a dinner. These super early bird tickets have sold out, but hop on now to grab an early bird ticket at innovatingadvice.com/HUM for Humans Under Management.
To anyone on the podcast who is an advisor, we don't tamper around with your pricing models. We are not asking you for any kickbacks. We are also not fiddling around with your pitch processes or the way how you do your advice. Basically, all we do is to make you visible towards an audience that otherwise would have difficulty to find you.
Welcome to episode 53 of the Innovating Advice Show. I'm joined by Olga Miler, co-founder of SmartPurse, which is empowering women from all over the world to build each other up and reach new heights of financial independence. In this episode, Olga, who co-founded and developed UBS Wealth Management's award-winning global female program and the Gender ETF, shares why she co-founded SmartPurse, the global impact they're seeking to make, and how financial advisors around the world can leverage the platform to grow their own businesses. We also chat about Olga's current research around women and money, which, despite being a highly researched topic, has had really slow progress, and how she's hoping to change that. And finally, as an expert in gender-smart investing, we chat about what that means and why advisors should be more knowledgeable in this area. Links, show notes, and timestamps at innovatingadvice.com or directly through the link below. You're listening to the Innovating Advice Show, and I'm your host, Kate Holmes, bringing you the global pulse on financial services innovation, featuring financial planners, financial advisors, and related professionals from all corners of the globe. Let's dive in. Grüezi, Olga.
Grüezi, Katie.
It is such an honor to have you joining us here from Switzerland. And before we go any further, you speak like 6 languages. Is that correct?
Well, I think in 6 languages, which makes my brain super confused. My native language is Czech and German, and then I speak a little bit of English, which I think is probably helpful for today.
Yes, very helpful. So, Olga, you've had a long and impressive career. I mentioned it in the intro and in your bio, and you are now focused full-time on your startup, SmartPurse. So I want to start with why. Why did you and your partner Jude create SmartPurse? Then we're going to dive in more to exactly what it looks like and how listeners can get involved. But I always love hearing the why behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my obsession with financial education and financial education for women in particular started something like 8 years ago when I was helping UBS to implement the women segment strategy. And I did a lot of research, and somehow I found that there is this thing about the financial content still being too complex and women feeling almost afraid to actually ask the questions because we as financial professionals seem to make it very inaccessible. And so it kind of made me, you can almost say, sad, because there is this enormous amount of knowledge and enormous amount of willingness to be helpful to people inside financial services, but somehow we seem to be failing, or at least at that point in time in UBS, we definitely were failing to kind of make this accessible to everybody, in particular women. And so I did a lot of piloting and a lot of studying around how women want to learn about money, what is it that is putting them off, and basically then came to the conclusion that financial education is something that shouldn't be owned by one single banking provider, but that it is something that hopefully can become common knowledge. I mean, if you look at statistics, and here quoting the UK, out of 10 things that British people had wished they would have learned at school, 5 relate to money, and number 1 skill is budgeting.
Wow.
And so I made it my life's mission to kind of unpack that box and basically step away from saying, okay, the women abdicate or they are less financially confident, but to focus more on the how. What would be helpful? How can we make this content available in a non-threatening way and also in a useful way? And that is basically where SmartPurse was born.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've just successfully raised money. So you're, like I said, full-time into it. You're looking to really build this, ramp it up, and have it impact women all over the world.
Yeah, totally. I feel a very happy and lucky entrepreneur at this point in time. I'm having a little bit of capital at hand and definitely the support from fantastic people, yet to be announced who they are. So I'm going to keep them secret.
Yes.
And yes, to build this out and to develop a financial educator that basically makes being good with money and talking about money and learning also about money as natural as keeping your body fit. Remember, 10 years ago, nobody would be counting steps. Nobody would have an app to kind of alert you when you are supposed to drink more water. And today, all of these things are very natural. And I want to apply the same intuitive logic on financial content.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned kind of actually going out and talking to women and saying, hey, what would help you? What do you need on this journey? And one of the things you're working on now is research that hasn't been done before. So can you share what that's shaping up to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of on my journey of discovery, and it's not finished research yet, but to understand exactly this, how do people actually search for financial information? What triggers this need to know more about money? And I can tell you all, no, it's not that people wake up in the morning and say, today is the day when I'm going to sort out my finances.
Yeah.
Today, I'm going to be stellar at it. It's not that. I mean, very few people do. So what have I learned so far? Most people search for financial information, women in particular, when something in their life happens that kind of triggers that thought. This can be something they read in the news, or it can be a life event such as having a child, purchasing a house, separating from their partner, or thinking of joining forces with their partner, going independent, but kind of something bigger happens. Job loss can be a very active thing, sadly, these days during the pandemic. And then what they do is they go and search online, or they ask a friend. And once they have searched enough online, they feel very overwhelmed. Most people feel incredibly overwhelmed because there is so much information out there. So those who have been searching online usually go and ask a friend. And from there, they are looking kind of for this trusted space to say, so somebody tell me, what is my blueprint? What is my roadmap that I need to know about this particular subject? Let's say purchasing a house. And can I learn from my friends or from my colleagues as much how they have done it, how they have experienced it, the mistakes they have made? And with this, they start to get some collective intelligence, and from there they paddle through. That's basically how people learn about money today. Now, obviously, news can be helpful or cannot be helpful. Some of the editorial content that is out there can be very helpful, such as money diaries or case studies of women. But what women have told me is they only perceive this as being helpful if it is very genuine. So any staged female, she did this or she did that, is definitely not resonating. And so there is this need for transparency, and this transparency obviously has to be impartial. And that's where kind of I come in. So if it is impartial, it kind of is valued because it provides you an overview. What are my options? Which one could be right for me, or how do I even decide which one is right for me? And that is kind of, I think, the thing where I hope SmartPurse can tap into and can make women's lives a lot easier. And to do that in a trusted space, so that you do it together with others, that you learn from the experience of others, and that we kind of as women use our collective intelligence to lift each other up, to help each other to get to terms with money. It's not a difficult subject once you unpack it, but the barriers I find are very, very high. Even for myself, when I was kind of looking up saying, I want to buy an ETF, until I depicted which one would be the right for me. It took me hours of research. And I think this is where, everyone who's listening, who is an advisor, can make their client's life a lot easier by not only explaining what the end solution is, but also explaining how you are getting to the end solution and why you are recommending this or that course of action for your clients. Women always want to understand why something is the way and not just being blasted at with the final facts.
Yes. Yeah. So that impartiality is huge. And then a lot of what you're saying, and think about the Fitbit and telling you to drink water reminders throughout the day comes back to personalization. And as you were talking and thinking about different research, I was on a hike with a girlfriend the other day and we were joking about, I love dark chocolate. And so when I want to justify it, you can always go online and find research saying that dark chocolate is good for you. If I'm ever trying to quit coffee, you can find research that says coffee is bad. When I want to get back on coffee, you can find things that say coffee is good, and so it's that need for the personalization, right? Because it's going to depend on that person and where they're at in life. And, when it comes to things with money, you can find every possible opinion out there and it does get overwhelming. So, Olga, I love what you're building with this and bringing that community together and creating that safe space and the research that you're doing now. And I believe one of your goals is to kind of inform an overall better experience for women in financial services.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And you are totally right. And personalization doesn't come only from the risk suitability assessment that you do with people, but probably for me, even at a broader scale, just for them to understand where do I have my insecurities when it comes to money. And we developed kind of a very easy self-test. We call it like the financial health check, like the fitness health check, right?
Yeah.
And this thing doesn't use any figure. You don't need to enter any figure anywhere. And all it does, it kind of reflects back to you, where do you feel the most insecure, and maybe serves as like a little pointer to figure out and say, maybe this is an area where you might want to pay a little bit more attention to. And from there, then you can, of course, personalize the learning content. Digital makes it possible, right? If you have a flat book, you of course can consume certain chapters, but it never allows you this interactive experience of doing quizzes online, saving things, coming back to them later, jumping from one chapter to the other, having cross-reference with events, etc. So I find digital an incredibly handy mechanism actually to create an experience that is different and maybe closer to our daily being now, right? Consume the content on your way to work, download things. I think it's become second nature. So why couldn't money be taught this way?
Yes. So one of the questions I have is I've seen a lot of debate over the years about, well, first of all, we'll start with this, the difference between financial education and financial literacy. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm over questioned on the definition here, really, right? I think financial education is what you learn, and most people would define it what you know about the instruments and the stock market and the different ways how to invest your money. For me, financial literacy probably would go even broader than that, as coming back to the sheer fact, knowing how to do a budget, knowing what risks you might be facing, knowing the basic way how to calculate your retirement. I mean, there is a lot of work that has been done by this in Canada. And the OECD obviously has done a huge financial literacy framework for adults, which also forms kind of the basis of the SmartPurse learning content. So we're basing our learning journey on the OECD financial literacy framework. I think in the end, however you define it, what matters is the outcome. And the outcome is that you don't overspend, that you understand where your money is going, that you can put something aside for emergencies, that you can put something aside for your retirement, hopefully enough, and that you don't lose out having money just sitting in a cash account, doing nothing in the current low interest rate environment other than depreciating in value. I think for me it's far more about the outcomes than it actually is about than the definition. I'm sorry to say that. Very handsome girl.
That makes sense. So it's kind of this journey of going from education, learning, and then literacy, and then you really transition into the doing. And through SmartPurse, you're taking people on that whole journey. So it's going
Yep.
from the learning, and then you're actually connecting them with coaches and helping with them, making sure that it's the doing piece is getting implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably where we differ from any book, right? Because we give people how-to guides, step-by-step guides. We allow them to test, even down to, showing how, for instance, a robo-advisor solution works, or how a risk assessment works and what it does, what it doesn't do, what potentially a financial advisor might ask in your advisory process. Because many women actually feel that they would need more education before they even come and see an advisor. I mean, this sounds stupid, but it is this way, right? And there is no reason for that, because it has nothing to do with intelligence. It just has to do with depicting the information and knowing where to find it. So we focus on very, very practical things that empower you to act. And that's also why you will find on SmartPurse the content being extremely short, because a lot of it is really to know what you need to know and then kind of try it out, right? It's a more modern approach than having to read books this fat until you finally can devise an investment plan.
So, Olga, talk us through what that whole journey looks like. So if I'm a woman signing on to SmartPurse, what is my experience and what are all of my options?
So when you sign on to SmartPurse, basically you have two ways to kind of decide how you want to learn. One is for people that love to learn digitally only. So there is this full-fledged digital solution, which you can imagine like a giant sort of digital course or exercise part, I would almost call it, right? Imagine a fitness app-like experience. So it has different chapters. Each chapter explains you why you are learning this, what the expected outcomes are. It has checklists, exercises, etc. The second way to engage with SmartPurse or to learn is really to take a course, because we found that many women love to learn through community and learning together and ask options. And so when you sign up, basically you sign up through a course, and then the digital solution is kind of like your how-to book to do homework or to look something up or to come back to later. And we find this a very effective way, both ways, very, very effective in terms of how people engage with it. Obviously, as part of the membership, you get access to a community, you get access to money question and answer sessions. And then you have this feature, which is to find an advisor or a money mentor or money coach. And that is a very simple thing to do. Basically, you go on, you fill in a couple of criteria. It takes exactly 30 seconds to do that.
Wow.
And then it proposes to you a number of coaches that could be or that match your criteria. And from there, you send an inquiry. And once you are matched or paired with the coach, this is where the SmartPurse process stops. So to anyone on the podcast who is an advisor, we don't tamper around with your pricing models. We are not asking you for any kickbacks. We are also not fiddling around with your pitch processes or the way how you do your advice. Basically, all we do is to make you visible towards an audience that otherwise would have difficulty to find you.
So first question on the client side. So is it all women coming on to SmartPurse? Is it open to men?
It's open to men, and we welcome men. Actually, we have roughly 30% of male visitors to SmartPurse. It's very clearly labeled as a female platform. It also looks and feels that way, and obviously our content is deliberately written with a female voice in mind, and addresses also topics such as how do I find if I have a gender pay gap, and what do I need to ask my employer, so things like this. But men are very, very welcome. We made it a women-only thing because we found in all of the soundings that we did is that the dialogue among women about the subject of money is different if it is happening among women than if you have men in the room. And that is no offense to anyone being male listening here. It's just that the quality of the dialogue is different. The topics that get discussed are different, and therefore we wanted to provide a safe space for women first. But of course, every man is welcome. And if you want to be an advisor and you happen to be a man and you want to be on SmartPurse, you are in very, very good company, because we have wonderful male advisors. And there is no piece of research pointing to the fact that women would only want financial advice from women. They want a person they can trust. They want a person that connects with us on a personal level. So it's not just about the money, it's as much about our life and about us as human beings as about the money. And gender is definitely not the decisive criterion. So every man is warmly welcome.
So even within those communities where it's, women having that safe space, men are welcome in those communities.
Well, yeah, whether they will feel good being part of the community, I think is up to the men to decide. Maybe it feels a little odd, but if you look at it the other way around, sometimes it's a similar experience how we as women have felt in tech or in financial services for a very long time, right?
Absolutely. And then, Olga, what does the process look like for people that are listening that are like, hey, this sounds like a great platform. I would love to be part of this. What does it look like from the advisor side to become listed on the SmartPurse platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So also that is a very simple process, probably will one or the other, depending on where you work, take a little bit of time to get the documentation sorted, but really just a little bit. So if you want to become an advisor listed on SmartPurse, you send an inquiry, because right now our pilot has closed, so we are collecting inquiry for September. And everybody very, very happy to join us then. You send us an inquiry, then we usually will ask for your qualifications and your CV. Then you go through a conversation or an interview process, basically, so that we all have an understanding what to expect from the platform, what is it that you are looking for, also for us to understand how does your pricing model work, are you serving only a certain kind of customers, and anyone who is a professional here, obviously we are well aware that you segment your clients by wealth brackets, most likely. So this is just things that are really, really good to know. And then once you find that this is the right fit for you, then we send you a form to be filled out to create your profile and the piece of document that you might need for your compliance department that basically constitutes the relationship between you and SmartPurse. And so far, nobody had any problems with the document, but financial services need paper, so we have paper. Yeah. And then from there, we create your profile online. And start to publicize it, and are very grateful if you publicize it as well and become a happy coach on SmartPurse. And then I think very important is to know what happens when an inquiry comes in. So when somebody wants to get in touch with you, they send their inquiry to be in touch with you, to the SmartPurse, to us first, because we pay a lot of attention about protecting the advisor's privacy being one thing, and secondly, to prevent your inbox being spammed with a lot of junk. So usually we do a little bit of vetting whether this is a genuine inquiry. Sometimes people just have a question that we'll never make for a full advisor session, so we answer that question. And if it is a good and valid inquiry, not coming from a robot, but from a real person, we will pass it on to you. And then you have the contact details of the person that wanted to get in touch with you. And from there, the two of you connect and hopefully embark on a happy lifelong advisor relationship.
Yeah, I like that. I was on a platform years ago and it wasn't necessarily spam, but it was people that didn't totally understand how the process worked, and they thought you could work with an advisor for free. And, it took a lot of time and exchanges back and forth. So that's a really nice sort of middleman that you're playing there to protect the advisors and make sure it's a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate that, the advisors that join us, some of them also donate their time. So if their wealth brackets are very high, they still want to join. They donate their time for free coaching sessions. We also have deep respect, obviously, for the craft of being an advisor. And therefore, yes, it has to be a win-win situation. And of course, as much as intrinsically you trust human beings to not send you robotic inquiries, I think it's still just better to try to get it right?
Yeah. And we mentioned this is going global. So are we talking every country? Or are you starting with a segment of countries?
So we are starting, our core countries are the UK and Switzerland and rolling over into Germany. But obviously the advisor finding function is global, right? There is no reason why if you are in India or if you are in the United States, you couldn't join as an advisor. And then obviously as women come onto the platform, they will also find advisors relevant for their countries. Our learning content, I have to be transparent, is 80% global and 20% country specific because of the different regulations, pension schemes, and all of these things. So if you are, for instance, a US woman and you want to use SmartPurse, then obviously on the retirement piece, most likely you will not be too lucky with that information. And we just have to be transparent because we are a very young startup. So until we build all of that out. That said, of course, global scale is the goal and has to happen and hopefully will happen. So we are fiercely working on kind of scaling the contents to different countries as we will be progressing. But it's not going to be tomorrow where you have, 55 countries
Right.
online.
Of course. No, it's good to it's good to grow thoughtfully, but I love that global focus on it and the global desire to be everywhere. And I know I've been involved in building out global content for the CFP certification program, and it is not easy. So I have complete appreciation for that. And Olga, what would you say is the ultimate goal for SmartPurse?
Well, I think if Tesla is the thing for electric cars and Uber might be the thing for taxis, we want to be the thing for women's money, for independent financial education. That would be our goal.
Yeah, I love that. And you've also said to be the world's most sought after independent advice and education for women, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, hopefully we will get there. I am very confident. Every force and stars are aligned to make that happen. But of course, it needs the support. It needs the support from the industry, as much as it needs support from the women. So. We are not the first people trying to crack the financial education challenge. I'm very well aware of that and also very realistic. But right now, we are on a really motivated path to succeed. So let's hope that continues.
Yes. So I want to circle back to you're doing research now, but this is what, like your 9th research project you've been involved in? What are some of the others that you've done over the years and some of the fascinating takeaways from those research projects?
Look, so I started to kind of research a little bit more women and money maybe in 2014, and I still remember, this study called "The Power of the Purse" that was done by the Center for Talent Innovation, which was at that point in time the very first thing that crossed my desk, and I just thought this was a fabulous piece of research. Right now, women and money is probably one of the most researched subjects on the planet. I mean, there is a paper popping up every second day, I would say. I personally was involved in, of course, a lot of the research that UBS is publishing on women and money, a piece of research that is called Women and Wealth that was done for the Financial Alliance for Women last year, that we interviewed 20 banks and what they are doing and not doing for the women segment. And kind of my highlight takeaways is probably not even that much around things that do this or do that, but is despite the amount of research that is being published on the subject, it still seems that the progress is very slow. And I'm just going to cite one thing from the newly published UBS study, Own New Words 2020, which kind of takes reference to the research we published in 2018. And it's basically is still depicting the same challenges, very similar challenges. And one of them being that millennial women seem to have a very high intent when they are single to get to terms with money and engage in long-term financial planning. And the moment they engage in a partnership, 6 out of 10 delegate this responsibility to their partner.
Wow.
And that is the younger women, not older women like me, already kind of halfway through with their life, right? And I just do find it striking that this is still, despite all efforts, not really shifting. In the same way, like the gender pay gap doesn't seem to be really shifting. I mean, every year the WEF shows this glorious statistics that it's going to take hundreds of years to close the economic gender pay gap. And the entrepreneurial financing gap, fundraising gap is still not shifting. And so I personally believe we need two things. We need more financial education for women to make our own money matter and count. Because if it's just sitting on a saving account, it doesn't execute a vote. It could execute a vote for what we believe in, right? So make that money matter, and knowing how to do that, I think, is given the power of the female purse, enormously important. Secondly, I think it needs a lot more support for female entrepreneurs. And I think we need more women in decision-making roles in financial services. So not women just in general, but move them from the note takers to the decision makers would be absolutely brilliant. Chief investment officers, investment product creators. We need a lot more women influencing government spending. At the moment, there is like this huge fiscal help being put out, and somehow it doesn't seem to have a lot of gender lens on it, right? So I think it is important that, you know, women have a seat at the table where the decisions are being made, and not that we just keep ourselves happy with the tools. And that basically would bring me to a completely different subject, which is everything around gender lens investing and all the incredible work that is being done in the gender lens investing community. But I probably would fill a whole other podcast for you for that, so I'm just going to step away carefully.
No, but I do want to touch on that, because, you know, you have been known as the gender lens lady, and you've got this great TEDx talk on how your money can change the world while you sleep. And you just mentioned, you know, voting for what we believe in with our purse. So I absolutely want to touch on that. And starting with, you know, we've got just so much terminology that changes all over the world, and some things mean different things in different places. So I'm constantly trying to wrap my head around it. So let's start with, can you explain the similarities or differences between, you know, gender lens investing, sustainable investing, impact investing? How do those all tie together?
Oh, absolutely. So gender lens investing basically takes the theory that if you invest in companies that have good gender equality practices, or even good diversity practices for that matter, it's not just about women, but it's also about women of color, for instance, or people with disabilities, that these companies have in general terms more innovative power, better decision making, and therefore also better risk management, and in the long term will outperform those that haven't. And so gender lens investing takes a very conscious approach in investing in these companies, and this can either happen by creating an index. So you create an exchange trade funds based on an index that tracks gender lens companies, or you create a bespoke solution kind of where you consciously invest in companies that provide solutions for the women's market, or you invest in female entrepreneurs, or you deploy philanthropic capital or any form of help into, you know, organizations that basically help to advance women and girls. But the most common thing would be to do it most likely through funds and ETFs. And basically it is more an economic rationale than an equality rationale. You just believe that these companies will outperform. And so far, these gender lens investment solutions have been doing fairly well. If you look at it, I wouldn't be able to quote all the performances now, but they prove to be fairly robust. And in the sustainable investment space, it's a similar thing, but you are looking at sustainability criteria. Whether it is that you select one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and you say, I'm going to make my money matter for climate change, and then you seek out actively products and solutions where you can invest for climate change or that provide solutions to make the planet more clean, is then totally up to you. But because the framework is so large, and there are 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, to find the right products for you is the enormous challenge. It's like this huge supermarket of sustainable investment products is not very well labeled, and it's not very intuitive. So my recommendation to anyone who really wants to be serious about this is to get good advice. Because it's, yes, of course, you can find online and you can track the indices, and there is the PRI, the Principles for Responsible Investing, and a lot of standardization is happening, but I think we are far not there yet. And impact investing is then kind of a third category where investors seek out not only to have a monetary return, but really have a measurable social return. And that usually is not that much in ETF solutions to be found, but basically private equity, where you really measure the impact that your money makes, and you invest for both outcomes. And as an impact investor, you would want to see what your money is doing, right? Both financially and on the social impact side. And then a lot of scorecards are being developed, and there is the Global Impact Investing Network, where these people come together and exchange and try to find solutions. So it is still a lot of work. If you want to do it properly, even if you want to know where your pension funds are invested, for instance, it takes a little bit of engagement, but it's definitely worth it. I personally think it's hugely worth it.
Yeah. Well, and I love that in the TEDx talk, you were dispelling some myths, and one of them is that you can't maximize profit and do social good. And, being in financial services, you shared a chart and showing that, out of 2,000 studies, 90% of these, sustainable impact gender investing funds had a positive or neutral return over, I forget what the benchmark index was, but the gist of it being, you can maximize profit and do social good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hope that this myth that there is a trade-off between sustainable investing and good returns hopefully has been, eliminated from the planet, because as said, 2,000 studies and more have been done. And just very recently now, during COVID and the pandemic, a lot of research has been done whether these sustainable products and sustainable solutions actually prove to be more robust. And in fact, some studies pointed to the fact that they have been, that they took less of a drawdown, etc. But it also, of course, depends on what solution you have at hand. As you said before, it's easy to find stat on any fact you want to prove.
Right.
But I think, yes, there is no trade-off. What we need to make sure is that people outside understand this, people outside of the industry. And I think the other thing is what needs to happen, and is urgently necessary, is that advisors get educated on how these sustainable investment products function, so you can advise your clients properly. I mean, that was one thing that struck me this year. I'm reading a piece of research that basically, and it was really done in the UK, many financial advisors don't propose sustainable investment products because they are not aware of the in-house offering and what they could offer to their clients. And I think that is just a pity, right? It is an opportunity for all of us. And it starts and falls with the people who is advising the person in front of you.
Well, and something that we should be doing with our own money, really, like you said, vote with your dollars, vote with your purse, and put it into a lot of these things. And knowing that you can also maximize your profit, I mean, why would you not? So that's honestly research that I need to do more of. I've had conversations over the years, but it's not something I've taken a deep dive into. So I'll definitely be doing that following this call.
Hey, wonderful. One more person inspired. And don't
Yes.
get discouraged. It's just a lot of information out there. Yeah.
Like with everything. Olga, thank you so much. What are some final thoughts you would leave for listeners?
Well, look, for listeners, I think help us to spread actionable financial education. Join SmartPurse platform as an advisor if you are one, because I think it is still very much needed. And I think people need this knowledge and need the advice even more now than they needed it probably before because of the highly volatile environment. I mean, it's like stock market up, down, forward, left, center. Nobody really knows what's actually going to happen, and we all don't have magic wand. And you are the expert sitting out there, so it would be great if you help us to translate this expertise to people that so far have not benefited from it.
Yes, I love that. I echo all of that. I've linked to the SmartPurse website below. I've linked to the TEDx talk and a lot of other great resources. So Olga, thank you so much. And thank you for everything you're doing at SmartPurse. I'm so excited to see it grow over the years. I'd love to have you back on once the research that you're working on is completed and published, and continue the conversation around, gender lens investing and just changing the world.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Innovating Advice Show. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a thought or two. Link to my profile is right below. Stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to hearing from you.